I could hardly believe it. After years of waiting, my wedding day was finally just around the corner. The apartment smelled of lavender candles I'd lit to calm my nerves, though my heart still raced like a drum. Cody and I had walked this long road together, from late-night study sessions in cramped dorm rooms to saving every penny for the little house we now called home. Our story wasn't perfect, but it was ours, built brick by brick, dream by dream. And now, with flowers ordered and relatives arriving, it felt like the grand finale of everything we had worked for. When Cody mentioned his bachelor party, he wore that same boyish grin I'd fallen for back in college. Nothing wild, nothing reckless, he promised me. Just beers, video games, and the kind of trash talk only old friends could get away with. I laughed at how seriously he tried to reassure me, teasing him about being a grown man still stuck in college mode. But honestly, I was glad. It sounded simple, harmless. No clubs, no drama, nothing for me to worry about. Just men being boys one last time before the vows. To show him how much I trusted him, I even stopped by the store after work and carried home a case of his favorite craft beers. I placed them in his hands like a little gift, smiling as I told him, "Make sure your friends don't whine about running out." He kissed my forehead, and in that moment, I felt my chest swell with something close to certainty. I believed him completely. Why wouldn't I? Trust was supposed to be the foundation of everything we were about to promise each other. The week leading up to the wedding was a blur of fittings, phone calls, and endless little details that demanded my attention. My mother fussed over the seating chart, my maid of honor kept reminding me about hair and makeup schedules, and I found myself juggling checklists like a circus act. But through it all, Cody stayed calm, almost too calm, as if the whole whirlwind barely touched him. I told myself that was a good thing. He was my anchor, steady and dependable, just as he'd always been. Sometimes, in the quiet moments, I'd catch myself daydreaming about the life waiting for us after the wedding. Lazy Sunday mornings in our kitchen, laughing about burnt pancakes, vacations we'd saved for but never taken. Maybe even children someday, running through the backyard barefoot, filling the house with noise and chaos. Those thoughts were like soft promises in my chest, wrapping me in warmth when the stress threatened to unravel me. I held on to them tightly, because they made all the madness worth it. On the night of his party, I kissed Cody goodbye at the door, my hand lingering on his for a second longer than usual. He looked back at me with that playful sparkle in his eyes, and I smiled, thinking how lucky I was. As I closed the door behind him, I felt a wave of calm wash over me. He deserved this night with his friends, and I deserved the peace of knowing I didn't have to question a thing. Trust. Wasn't that what love was supposed to feel like? That night, the apartment felt strangely quiet without him. I curled up on the couch, half watching some old rom-com while my mind wandered to the ceremony. I pictured myself walking down the aisle, my father's arm steadying me, Cody waiting at the end with that grin that always made me melt. I could almost hear the organ music, see the faces of our friends and family beaming with joy. It all felt so close, so real, like I could reach out and touch it. I scrolled through my phone absent-mindedly, answering a few last-minute texts from bridesmaids and relatives. Everyone seemed so excited, so ready to celebrate us. It gave me this comforting sense of belonging, like all the pieces of my life were sliding perfectly into place. For once, there was no second-guessing, no doubts nagging at me. Just the kind of confidence that comes when your heart feels utterly safe in someone else's hands. Before heading to bed, I set my wedding shoes by the door, polished until they sparkled under the lamplight. I touched the lace of my dress one more time, almost like a superstition, whispering to myself that tomorrow would be the start of forever. I climbed under the covers with a smile on my lips, not knowing that the truth waiting to crash into me would turn that forever into something entirely different. The night before my wedding, I was desperate for just a few moments of peace. I slipped away from the chaos of family chatter, sitting on the edge of the bed with my phone in hand, letting the silence settle around me. That's when it buzzed, a simple text notification, harmless at first glance. But the name flashing across the screen wasn't familiar. Mike from Paradise. For a second, I thought it had to be some mistake. Maybe spam, maybe a wrong number. I opened it anyway. Good evening, Cody. This is Mike from Paradise. We found your credit card while cleaning the club. My stomach clenched, the words blurring for a heartbeat as my pulse thundered in my ears. A club? Cody's card? My Cody, who had sworn last weekend was nothing but beers and games? I sat frozen, staring at the screen, waiting for the universe to tell me it was some bizarre coincidence. But no matter how many times I read it, the message didn't change. It was like the ground beneath me tilted, and suddenly, I wasn't sure of anything anymore. My hands trembled as I typed back, pretending to be him. Thanks, Mike. Could you send me the address so I can pick it up? I hit send before I could overthink, my heart hammering so hard it felt like it might split my chest open. A moment later, the reply appeared on the screen, casual and unassuming. The address of a place called Paradise. My throat tightened instantly. Paradise wasn't some dive bar or arcade. I knew exactly what kind of place it was. A strip club. The words echoed in my mind, sharp and undeniable. My vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall, because crying felt like admitting it out loud. I tried to steady my breathing, tried to convince myself there was some logical explanation. Maybe a friend used his card, maybe this was all some mix-up. But deep down, I knew better. The truth was clawing its way into the light, and I could no longer push it back into the shadows where trust had kept it hidden. I sat there in the dim glow of my lamp, staring at the name of that club, feeling my chest tighten with a kind of pain I had never known. Tomorrow was supposed to be about promises and vows, but now I was holding proof of a lie. And the cruelest part? He'd handed me that lie with a kiss on my forehead, with the kind of ease that only comes from someone who thinks they'll never be caught. I couldn't sit still. My fingers dug into the sheets, my body torn between denial and the desperate need for answers. Every memory of Cody's reassurances replayed in my head, his calm tone, his steady eyes, his easy smile, as if he'd rehearsed them to perfection. How many times had I trusted that voice, that look, without question? And now, with one stray text, it all unraveled. My faith in him, my belief in us, felt like glass shattering at my feet. I kept staring at my reflection in the darkened window, searching for strength, for clarity. Part of me wanted to throw the phone across the room, pretend I never saw that message, let tomorrow unfold as if nothing had happened. But another part, the part of me that had grown wiser with every hardship, every disappointment in life, knew I couldn't ignore it. Ignoring lies only let them grow, and I refused to walk into marriage blind. With my phone still in hand, I whispered into the silence, if he lied about this, what else has he lied about? The question stung, heavier than anything I had ever asked myself. I didn't have the answer yet, but I knew one thing for certain. Before I said I do, I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. The next morning, I drove through the city with my hands gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. The sun was barely up, casting that hazy golden glow across the streets, but to me it felt harsh, almost mocking. Paradise. The name of the strip club blinked on the GPS screen, each mile closer twisting my stomach into tighter knots. I told myself I was ready, but the truth was nothing could prepare me for what I might hear. My heart thudded in rhythm with the tires on the pavement, each beat a reminder that everything I believed in was hanging by a thread. When I finally pulled into the cracked asphalt lot, my chest constricted. The neon sign, still buzzing faintly from the night before, felt like a slap in the face. I sat there for a long moment, breathing, trying to summon the woman inside me who could handle this. My dress for the wedding hung back at home, pristine and untouched, while I sat in yesterday's jeans, about to pick up the evidence of a life I wasn't sure belonged to me anymore. I wiped my palms against the steering wheel, whispering, "You can do this. You have to." Inside, the smell of stale alcohol and cheap perfume hit me like a wall. A man in a Paradise polo shirt waved casually as if he'd been expecting me. "Cody, right? Left your card at the bar," he said with a friendly grin, sliding the small piece of plastic across the counter. My throat tightened. I took the card with steady hands, masking the storm brewing inside me. "Thanks," I murmured, my voice calm, though inside I was breaking. As I slid the card into my pocket, the man leaned casually against the counter, his voice easy, almost too cheerful. "Man, your buddies sure know how to throw a party. Haven't seen a group like that in years." I froze, forcing a polite smile, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. "Yeah?" I asked lightly, as if I were just making small talk. Inside, though, his words sliced into me, each one sharper than the last. He chuckled, shaking his head. "Wildest night I've seen in a long time. You boys went all out, drinks, dances, the works. Place hasn't been that alive in months." My stomach twisted, bile rising in my throat, but I didn't let it show. Instead, I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear and nodded like I was in on the joke. Every detail he offered painted a picture I didn't want to see, but couldn't unhear. The more he talked, the heavier my chest became, like someone stacking stones on top of me one by one. I wanted to scream, to tell him he had the wrong person, but deep down, I knew he didn't. He was describing Cody, my Cody, the man I was supposed to marry in less than 24 hours. And there I stood, calm on the outside, unraveling silently inside. I thanked him with a polite nod, pretending his words hadn't just ripped through the very fabric of my life. My smile was tight, my tone measured, but every step I took back toward the door felt like walking through fire. The morning light hit me again as I pushed outside, sharp and blinding, and I realized my legs were shaking. I held Cody's card in my hand like proof of a crime, small but undeniable. It wasn't just plastic, it was the weight of every lie he had so easily wrapped in reassurance. I sat in my car, staring at the wheel, my fingers trembling. Tears threatened to break free, but I swallowed them down, refusing to let them win. Not here, not in this parking lot where he had laughed, where he had betrayed me. No, I wasn't going to collapse. If Cody had his performance last night, then tomorrow, I would have mine. And mine wouldn't end with applause. It would end with silence so heavy it crushed him. The engine roared to life beneath me, and for the first time since reading that text, I felt a strange clarity. The wedding wouldn't be a wedding anymore. It would be a reckoning. I gripped the wheel tighter, steadying my breath. Tomorrow, everyone would hear the truth. Every word, every detail. And Cody would never see it coming. The church smelled faintly of roses and candle wax, the kind of sweetness that should have felt comforting. Guests filled the pews, whispers weaving through the air like a low hum. I walked slowly down the aisle, my veil brushing against my shoulders, my heart pounding not from nerves, but from the secret I carried. Every step felt deliberate, rehearsed, as if I were playing a role in a play only I knew the ending to. My dress shimmered under the stained glass light, but beneath it, my resolve was steel. Cody stood at the altar, beaming, his eyes locked on me as though I were the only person in the world. That boyish grin, the one that had once made me fall head over heels, now looked like a mask I could see straight through. He had no idea that behind my steady gaze, I was holding the truth like a blade, ready to cut through the illusion he'd so carefully built. He smiled, but all I could see was paradise written in neon above his head. The music swelled, guests dabbed at their eyes, and I kept moving forward, each step quieter, heavier, more certain. They thought they were about to witness vows of devotion. What they didn't know was that they were about to witness a truth no one in this room would ever forget. And I wasn't walking toward a man I could trust. I was walking toward a reckoning. When I reached the altar, Cody reached for my hands, his palms warm, steady, almost smug in their confidence. The priest began speaking, his voice echoing off the tall walls, but all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. My eyes drifted over the rows of faces, our families, our friends, people who believed this was the start of a fairy tale. I felt a pang in my chest, not of doubt, but of sorrow. They deserved to know the truth just as much as I did. Cody spoke first, his vows rolling off his tongue with ease. He promised honesty, loyalty, forever. Every word was polished, practiced, so perfectly convincing. The crowd leaned in, some smiling, some tearing up, and I stood there, my lips pressed together, tasting the bitterness of every lie. I watched him swear his love in front of God and everyone we knew, and the irony nearly stole my breath. If only they knew what he'd done less than 48 hours ago. When it was my turn, the silence felt deafening. My hands didn't tremble, my voice didn't falter. I looked straight at Cody, then let my gaze sweep over his groomsmen, each one complicit, each one carrying his own secret. The words I had prepared for years as a promise of love were gone. Instead, another truth burned on my tongue, ready to ignite the room. And with the first breath I took, I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I drew in a steady breath, my eyes never leaving Cody's. "Cody," I began, my voice clear, calm, almost gentle. "You promised me honesty." A ripple of curiosity swept through the crowd, a shift in the air as if everyone sensed something was off. I let the pause linger, let the silence grow heavy before I spoke again. "But last weekend, while I believed you were drinking beers and playing games with your friends, you were at Paradise?" Gasps erupted across the pews, sharp and disbelieving. I could feel the weight of their stares pressing against my back, but I didn't flinch. "Yes," I said louder, my voice ringing through the church. "Paradise, a strip club. I know exactly what you did there, and so do your friends." I tilted my head slightly toward his groomsmen, each one suddenly unable to meet my gaze. Cody's smile collapsed, his face paling as though the floor had been ripped out from under him. His fingers twitched, but I didn't give him the chance to speak. The whispers grew, rising like a wave, and I stood there at the altar, veil framing my face, no longer a bride but the bearer of a truth too sharp to be silenced. This wasn't just about me and him anymore. It was about exposing what everyone else had been too blind or too trusting to see. I turned from Cody, my gaze sweeping across the crowded church. My voice was steady, though fire burned in my chest. "But this betrayal isn't just mine," I declared, each word slicing through the air like a blade. "Look around you. Every man standing with him that night, every groomsman, every so-called friend, was there too. They laughed, they cheated, they hid it. And in doing so, they betrayed not only me, but you, the women who trusted them." The reaction was instant. Wives covered their mouths with trembling hands, girlfriends stiffened in their seats, eyes wide with disbelief. I saw one woman clutch her partner's arm, her nails digging into his sleeve as she whispered, "Is it true?" Another shook her head slowly, as if refusing to accept the truth unraveling in front of her. Their heartbreak hung heavy in the air, filling every corner of the church. Behind me, Cody shifted, his face ashen, his groomsmen staring at the floor like guilty schoolboys caught in the act. But I didn't let the silence stretch too long. I owned it. I stood taller, veil catching the light as I spoke, my voice unflinching. "They thought they could hide behind each other, but I won't let your secrets stay secrets, not today." I locked eyes with Cody again, his lips parted as if he might defend himself, but no words came. "I was supposed to stand here today and promise you forever," I said, my voice ringing with a painful clarity. But why would I promise forever to someone who couldn't even keep his word for one night? Murmurs rippled through the pews, sharp gasps echoing like thunder as the weight of my words sank in. I took a step closer to the altar, holding my chin high. "Cody, you don't just lose me today. You lose the respect of every person in this room. And you groomsmen?" I turned slightly, my eyes sweeping over them, their faces pale and guilty. "Don't look so smug. Your secrets are no longer secrets. You owe explanations to the women sitting right in front of you, because I won't be the only one leaving this church today." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was electric, filled with heartbreak, fury, and the first cracks of realization spreading across the faces of wives and girlfriends. Some glared at their partners, others already in tears, and for the first time that morning, it wasn't me who looked broken. It was them, the men who had thought their night of pleasure would vanish into the dark. I slipped the ring from my finger, its weight suddenly unbearable, and let it fall onto the altar with a sharp clink that echoed through the church. Gasps followed, but I didn't flinch. I lifted my veil slowly, exposing my face, not as a bride waiting for vows, but as a woman reclaiming her dignity. "You wanted silence," I said firmly, my eyes locked on Cody. But what you got was the truth. Several women stood in the pews, their hands shaking, their eyes wet with betrayal. One bride-to-be tore her gaze from her fiancé and fled the church. Another stared daggers at her husband, her lips trembling as if on the verge of rage. The ripple spread, heartbreak after heartbreak unfolding before me. I had cracked something open in this room, and there was no way it could ever be sealed again. With steady steps, I turned and walked down the aisle, every face following me, every whisper a reminder of the storm I had unleashed. I wasn't leaving as a bride. I was leaving as a woman who chose truth over illusion, dignity over deception. And as the heavy church doors opened before me, I knew one thing for certain. They expected vows of silence. I gave them a chorus of truth,